What's up, everybody? Hey, how are you? Thank you for joining me tonight on this inaugural episode. I have kid monitor right here. So if I look off to the side on occasion, that's why. But if you're a Travel Tips Tuesday groupie, if there was such a thing, you're probably used to that anyway. So thank you all so much for joining me for this very first episode one. Well, not first, but it's episode one. We did episode 0 on board Star Legend from Windstar last week when I was cruising the Med. It was awesome. We're going to talk a little bit about that tonight, but we're mainly going to talk about our show topic, which is simply put, the pros and cons of small ship cruising, because there's some really great things about it, and there's some things maybe that could left to be desired, so to speak. But we'll get into that here in just a little bit. But a lot of fantastic Disney news has happened over the past month. Of course, bringing back the Disney dining plan that is running in full force, as well as a free dining promotion that ran a little while for Disney Plus subscribers. Unfortunately, that promotion has expired, but that was out there as well. People are booking trips to Disney. Cruising is definitely hot. All-inclusive travel is definitely hot. This year so far, we've had the Travelmation Retreat back in January, which was an amazing time to kind of celebrate our earmarked diamond status once again. And then again, last week I was cruising the Med on the Windstar Star Legend. We had a port of call in just outside Rome, and then also just outside of Florence, Italy, as well in Nice and Marseille, and then we wrapped up in Barcelona next month. I kind of teased this a little bit yesterday, but we'll be headed to Sandals Royal Curacao, and if you've never heard of Curacao, I don't blame you. I hadn't heard of it until this particular resort opened, but it is very similar to the island of Aruba as far as just kind of its background and history, even what it looks like, although it's a slightly cleaned up version, slightly more condensed version of what Aruba is like. Not as touristy, if you will, a little bit of a smaller island, and also takes a little bit longer to get there as well. But it's a fantastic place that I can't wait to experience at Sandals Royal Curacao next month. And then in April, I'll be sailing on my very first celebrity cruise line, sailing the Celebrity Summit. If you're popping on tonight, please let me know that you're here. We'll love to know that you are watching, and we'll love to know that you're here. Thank you again for your support. Again, a lot has been going on over the past year or so, and just so thankful for my clients and those that have supported my business and enabled me to do something that I love, to be able to serve other people, but at the same time, provide for my family. So it's been amazing. And again, if you're here, would love to hear from you. Just drop some in the comments, so I know you can hear me. I know we're working, we're rocking and rolling. So again, tonight's show topic is very simple: the pros and cons of small ship cruising. Up until last week, I had never been on a small cruise ship. I'd only sailed on the larger ships. Like, just over a month ago was on Icon of the Seas with my daughter Alice, and we may try to talk her into coming on if she's comfortable with it to kind of talk about her experience. I think that would be fun. But again, Icon of the Seas is like the almost the polar opposite of what I experienced last week, and Icon has a kind of specific focus. They're focused on serving families, right? It is a fantastic cruise ship. There's so many amazing things that are about it. But what Icon is built for, and what say the Windstar Star Legend or some of the other smaller ship or smaller cruise line ships like from Silver Sea or Seabourn or Atlas Ocean Voyages or Regent, any of the smaller lines that are out there, not smaller in stature per se, but just physically smaller ships, lower guest counts. A lot of the Windstar ships will have around 300 guests or less, sometimes less than 200, closer to 150 guests on some of them. And there are other ships that are like that too. And with these smaller ships, you get a lot of great perks. And I think the biggest one to kind of start off is that you're able to get closer to the destinations that you are visiting. Case in point, for a lot of these major cruise ports that are scattered around the Mediterranean, again, I said major ones, there's some minor ones as well. We'll talk about those in a second. These major cruise ports, you have these large cruise terminals that are built to accommodate, these ships that hold thousands of people. We actually saw some. We saw a couple of MSC ships that were kind of following us around a little bit as we were docking from port to port. But with the smaller ships, you are able to get closer to main points of transportation. You're not usually parked further down the pier, but they're able to almost pull right up into the main kind of main areas where a lot of these places are. When we were in Barcelona, there's this beautiful new cruise port terminal that had been built to accommodate these larger ships. But there's also a slightly older port area that accommodated a lot of, say, sailboats and other smaller ships. And we were able to pull right up into this particular cruise terminal. And I could get off the cruise ship and walk maybe, I don't know, 5 minutes and be at, taxi stands and other main sources of transportation in the area and hit up a lot of the more well-known spots. We were just a few blocks from La Sagrada Familia, the very well-known, I believe it's technically a basilica in Barcelona. You can correct me if I'm wrong if you're out there. But it was a lot of fun seeing that. It was a lot of fun experiencing, being able to kind of be close to a lot of those really cool things that you want to see. Similar experience when we were at the port of call outside of Rome in a town called Civitavecchia. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, because I heard it pronounced a number of different ways. It's roughly 45 minutes to an hour train ride outside of the Rome city center from either the St. Peter's Basilica station or what they call the Rome Termini station, that is right there close to a lot of the popular spots in Rome that you would want to see and experience. But again, great situation in Livorno outside of Florence, and also in the wonderful, beautiful town of Nice, and then in Marseille as well. Just the ship was able to pull right up into some of those older ports that are much closer to the city center. And I think there's an advantage to that. You can step off the ship, on and off the ship a lot easier. And, it wasn't necessarily a big thing to have to worry about being tendered or worry about where you're going to meet your transportation, because it was pretty obvious, I think where you were. And it was almost more of a customized kind of experience. When we were in Nice, the second day we did an overnight there, I was able to hop off the ship and just kind of walk around town for about 45 minutes or an hour. And I was just a stone's throw from where the ship was. I didn't have to worry about taking a taxi. I didn't have to worry about, hopping on public transport or anything like that. Felt very safe walking around where we were. It was, very kind of public area. And it was just really cool to kind of see, where we were right there. And we could look right up the mountain. Sir Elton John had a home in Nice, and they kind of pointed out where that was. And there's some other cool spots that we got to see and experience. Other things that I love about small ship cruising are just, I think the biggest thing, honestly, is the personal touches that you get with small ship cruising that you don't necessarily see on larger ships. They are available, but typically they come at a premium. They come at a price tag. Some have butler service or genies, as some cruise lines call them, where they will cater. They will be your personal concierge. They'll make all your excursion and dining reservations for you, and they'll be there to escort you to one thing or another, to make sure your room is taken care of, to check on all your special requests. Now, we didn't necessarily have butler service. They're on the ship that I was on, but it was a very personalized experience. And even with not having a butler that kind of followed you around, there were a lot of things that are available to you if you bought their all-included package. There's a lot of stuff that was available to you outside of just, say, Wi-Fi and in a drink package. But what really wowed me the most, and I think I talked a little bit about this last week, was the fact that you felt welcome there. At Travelmation, at our retreat back in January, our theme was "Welcome Home." Well, darn if I didn't say it. The night that we got on the ship, and they were kind of doing sort of an intro to the experience and everything. The captain got up and kind of went over this loudspeaker and talked about how they wanted us to feel at home. They wanted to feel, us that we were part of their family. And in fact, they use that verbiage, "welcome home." So it's not just like a Disney thing. It's not just, a Travelmation thing, but it just sort of, I don't know, in a lot of ways tied it all together to me. And was, cruising by myself in the Med for the first time. It's the furthest distance I've been away from home. My entire life, without having somebody else that I knew that I was either meeting or traveling with. And it was an amazing experience, but I was a little nervous, like, about meeting people and just doing something that was a little outside of my comfort zone. And I felt so at home in that place. Some people called me William, which is my first name. Some people called me John, of the crew members at least, which was my middle name. But it was just like from day one. I didn't have to remind them who I was. It was just this very warm feeling. How are you doing? I had some food allergies that I kind of let them know about, and they almost bent over backwards to make sure I was taken care of. Every single night I got an advanced copy of the menu, and it wasn't a hassle at all. It was something that they enjoyed. Like, there was a genuine sense of joy on their face of wanting to make sure that I was taken care of, but also others. There was a couple on board that had been sailing the same cruise for probably 3 weeks running, and they were doing it for another couple of weeks, just back to back to back to back, if you will. And they were just kind of part of the family. They were on a first name basis with everyone. And I didn't honestly feel like they treated me any different than them. And I feel like, for me, with being on a small ship, I think the crew to guest ratio was like maybe 2 guests for every 1 crew member. It was actually, I think, a little bit less than that. On a lot of these smaller ships, the crew to guest ratio is to the point where that you're going to be taken care of. If there's an issue, if there's a problem, those things will be taken care of. We were on some ship-led or ship-booked excursions one particular day, and the excursion leaders and the ship kind of got together. The leadership on board kind of got together and realized that we will be cutting it close for getting back in time to make the lunch options that were on board. So the ship actually held open some of the lunch options for us to make sure that the group that I was with got back in time. And even as some of the people started trickling in, they were very intentional. Hey, did you get anything to eat? Is there anything that I could get you? We want to make sure that you're taken care of. We knew that you guys were going to be running a little bit late and wanted to, make sure that everything was good. So other little personal touches along the way. It got kind of cool. It was a little unseasonably warm towards the start of the cruise. Towards the end of it, it got a little cool and windy and even wet at one point. But as it was cool and windy outside, a lot of people love sitting topside and just reading a book or hanging out, having a beverage, whatever the case was. And they put blankets out there for people, and they wanted to make sure that you had something to drink, that you had something to eat if you wanted it. And this was not something, that they felt like they went out of the way. They seemed to really genuinely enjoy their jobs. And it was just really a fantastic experience. And based on what I experienced, I would recommend that Windstar, Star Legend, Windstar Cruises in general, definitely, but any of the other smaller ship cruise lines that I mentioned. Again, they're able to get into closer into some of the major ports that you know about. They're also able to get into some ports that the larger ships cannot, especially in places like the Greek Isles, where there may be more shallower waters that they have to navigate in different places. And then other small towns like along the French and Italian Riviera, the Amalfi Coast, a few ports of call there that not every single larger ship can get into just because of the sheer size of them. So it's kind of neat to be able to experience some places that are a little bit more unique as a result of being on a ship that can get in those spaces. And they were able to navigate. So like one question that I think comes up on occasion with cruising is, well, what about rough weather? What about that? Like how these small ships, how do they handle that? Well, we had a little low pressure system that kind of came through and caused some pretty decent swells. I think upwards of 6 feet at one point. And the crew on board did their absolute best. They had all the greatest, latest greatest technology, radar systems, and communicating, and with land-based weather systems and all these things, just trying to figure out the best way to navigate this particular system that we were going through. And it was a little rough at times, but they did a great job making sure everybody felt comfortable and safe and having a good time. And it was actually at night when we were going through this, and the dance floor was open in one of their kind of bar lounge areas, and people were just kind of dancing back and forth and sliding across the dance floor from time to time. And one point in time, one lady actually, the ship listed ever so slightly. It was fine. It wasn't major, but just the point where someone stumbled and fell over backwards and landed in a chair. It was kind of funny. But the crew did a fantastic job of making sure that everyone was safe and felt comfortable, and were taken care of. And we know this because one of the things that's unique about Windstar Cruises, and again, I mentioned this last week, is that they have what's called an open bridge policy. Almost 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, the Windstar ship bridges are open for anybody to come up there and experience, to see how they navigate the ship. They will tell you about all the different instruments that are in there, what everything does. There's places for people to stand where you're kind of not in the way. Even while we were navigating that low pressure system, a couple of people that I met, I joined a couple of people up in the bridge and just kind of said, hey, they were just kind of saying, hey, here's what's going on. We were listening to the crew navigate, and they were radioing around the ship, kind of checking deck by deck to make sure everything was, good to go. And you could see their maps and everything. And the thing was pitch black because it was at night. Of course, they have just little lights on here and there, but you could see the white caps off in the distance. And they were kind of telling us about sort of how they make the decisions they make and where they're going to navigate, and how they have to log different things along the way. It was really interesting. And the cool part about that, again, talking about personal touches, the cool part about that is that for kids, there were a couple of families on board, not many. There were no organized kids clubs, but you can go up to the bridge and you can bring kids up there, like if they're interested in that kind of thing. They love the idea of boats, sailboats, whatever. We were not on a sailing ship, but it's just something that I feel like as a young kid that's like, you can have to be 8 years old or older, that it would be really cool just to be able to learn about that stuff and see it. And it wasn't like we weren't in the way. We were encouraged to go up there and be on the bridge if we were in port, or if we were at night. If it was at night and there were constellations out, they would show us different things, point out different things in the sky, talk about the history of navigation, even a lot of really cool things. So small ship cruising is where it's at. Definitely check it out. Consider it for a new cruiser. There are some people that were on the ship that have been on probably hundreds of cruises. There were some that was their first time ever being on a cruise ship. And this particular ship that we were on was more of a larger yacht in a way than it was like a big cruise ship. They actually referred to it as a yacht. I guess maybe classification wise, I'm not really sure how all that works. But it kind of felt like it because it was such a personal experience every step of the way. And if you wanted to step back, do your own thing, that was fine. They weren't all up in your business all the time, but they were definitely there and happy to help you if it was in the middle of the night, first thing in the morning, during the day on an excursion, wherever it was. So definitely recommend small ship cruising. Consider it for your next vacation. Larger ships are great too. We'll be talking about that here in the coming weeks. But there's a lot of amazing things about it, and definitely think about it. I don't want to leave this part out because this is very important. Okay, before we sign off, before we're done here in a second, the food on board, absolutely incredible. A lot of these smaller ships are able to partner with say Michelin star chefs in restaurants to help curate and craft their menus. In the case of WinStar, they actually have a partnership with the James Beard Foundation. They're the official cruise line of the James Beard Foundation, and I felt that with every drink that was poured, every dish that was served. There was a couple that I didn't like, but I think it was just my taste. It wasn't the dishes themselves. But like the steak was amazing. Had some of the best French onion soup I ever had. Pastas, even down to like the cappuccinos that were served on board. Like it was all absolutely wonderful and great every step of the way. So that's about all I got for tonight. I hope you enjoyed this first episode of T3, a travel podcast. We're kind of paying homage to the old show, Travel Tips Tuesday. And if you look close enough in the new logo around it, it says Time to Travel. So there's another T3 there for you. And there are a few other T3 podcasts that are out there. So as you're, if you subscribe to Travel Tips Tuesday on any of your major podcast players, just keep your subscription up. I'm going to update it to this particular kind of logo and branding for this new show. But want to just let you know again, how much we appreciate it, how much we appreciate your support. And again, just trusting me as your travel advisor. If you do have any questions about small ship, large ship cruising, or any cruising for that matter, anywhere in the world, or any types of vacations, be it for family, adults, single, solo travelers, whatever the case may be, feel free to reach out. You can go to travelmationjohn.com. Again, Travelmation with an M like Mickey. Travelmationjohn.com. That'll take you to my digital business card. You can find my contact information there, and would love to be able to know what your travel needs are and see if there's a way we can partner together. Thank you so much for joining me on this inaugural episode of T3, a travel podcast, and we will see you again real soon. Bye-bye.